The order came down like it was nothing. Unit 12, the guard barked. You're assigned sanitation duty. Cage 4. Don't ask questions. Julian froze, mop in hand. Sanitation duty usually meant scrubbing blood off interrogation floors, or sweeping the mess left behind after vivisections in the labs. But Cage 4 was different. Everyone knew it. The others turned their heads away, as if pretending not to hear. He swallowed hard. Sir, what's in Cage 4? The guard smirked, a scar stretching across his cheek. Not your business, cleaner. Just do your job. And keep your hands to yourself. They always said that. Keep your hands to yourself. As if whatever was inside Cage 4 was tempting enough to make men forget orders, forget discipline, forget survival. Julian walked the long corridor, each step echoing against the steel bulkheads. The facility was buried under kilometers of rock, hidden from the stars. No windows, no day or night. Just the endless hum of power conduits and the sharp sting of recycled air. It smelled of metal, disinfectant, and secrets. At the end of the corridor, 2 sentries stood rigidly outside a reinforced door. Their rifles hummed faintly with plasma charge. They didn't speak to him, just unlocked the door and gestured him through. Inside, the air changed. Warmer, charged almost. The chamber wasn't like the others. Instead of a concrete cell, this one glowed faintly, lit by a haze that seemed to come from the walls themselves. And in the center, on a narrow bench of alien alloy, she sat. The alien girl. Julian had heard whispers in the barracks, rumors about a captured specimen, a living treasure stolen from some far-off world. But no rumor had prepared him for the reality. Her skin glowed. Not in the way of lamps or neon, but as if light itself lived beneath the surface. A soft, pulsing radiance shimmered across her arms, her face, her throat, as though her blood was liquid fire. Her hair, a cascade of silver blue, shifted like water in a current, catching the glow and scattering it in hypnotic patterns across the walls. And her eyes! Gods, her eyes! They were enormous, luminous, too bright to belong to anything mortal. He looked into them for half a second and felt like he was drowning in galaxies. She looked up at him, wary, her hands bound in a field of energy that chained her wrists together. She didn't speak, but she didn't need to. That look was enough. She wasn't a monster. She wasn't an experiment. She was a girl. Julian's throat dried. He tightened his grip on the mop handle just to remember who he was. Sanitation detail, he muttered, voice barely steady. The guard outside had told him, don't touch, don't speak, just clean. But already he knew he was in trouble. He couldn't look away. The floor was spotless. There was nothing to mop. They had sent him here for one reason, to test him, to see if the human inside the uniform could resist curiosity, compassion, temptation. He forced himself to kneel, dragging the mop across imaginary dirt, pretending. Every time the head of the mop slapped against the floor, she flinched slightly, her glowing skin pulsing brighter as though reacting to the sound. Don't, Julian whispered before he could stop himself. I'm not here to hurt you. Her head tilted, and her glow dimmed, just a little. The first sign of trust. His heart hammered. This was insane. Cameras were everywhere. If the overseers noticed him speaking to her, even a word, he'd be in restraints before the hour was out. But the silence between them was unbearable. What did they do to you? He whispered, pretending to scrub the corner near her bench. Why are you here? She blinked slowly. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Then, in a voice softer than breath, like music made of starlight, she spoke. They fear me. Julian nearly dropped the mop. The words weren't just in the air. They rang in his skull, vibrating along his bones. Telepathy. She hadn't spoken with her mouth. They fear what I am. Her voice echoed inside him again. But you are not like them. He backed away, panic in his chest. This was beyond forbidden. Talking to her, hearing her. It was treason. And yet, he couldn't deny the pull. He looked at her wrists, at the glowing energy cuffs biting into her skin. The light of her body pushed against them, searing faintly where it touched. She was in pain, but she didn't cry out. She just stared at him, waiting. "Why me?" he muttered under his breath, hoping the cameras didn't pick up his lips moving. "Why now?" Because her voice came again, brushing his mind like a warm hand. "You can see me. Not just the glow. Me." Julian's chest tightened. All his life in the facility, he had been a number, a unit, a tool. Orders in, obedience out. No one had ever said he saw anything. And yet here was this alien girl, chained and captive, telling him he was different. The mop clattered as he let it drop. His pulse roared in his ears. The door hissed. A guard leaned in. "Everything clean, 12? Julian jerked upright. "Yes, sir." Just finishing. He grabbed the mop, trying to look busy. The guard squinted, then withdrew, the door slamming shut again. He exhaled sharply, sweat beading on his forehead. The girl's glow pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat. A faint smile curved her lips. In that moment, Julian knew. This wasn't just another assignment. This was a test of something far deeper. And he had already failed because he needed to risk everything for her. The mop dangled useless in his grip. His orders were clear. Clean and leave. But his heart had written new ones. He stepped closer, voice low and trembling. "If I help you, what happens to me?" Her eyes flared like twin suns. "You become part of something greater." And in that instant, Julian realized he was standing on the edge of a choice that would decide the rest of his life. Next hour, he rerouted his entire cleaning schedule to loop past the reinforced door again. The sentries didn't even glance up. A cleaner with a mop was the least of anyone's concerns in a prison where gods were caged and catalogued. He palmed the entry, stepped into the warm, charged air, and tried to look like a man obsessed with smudges. She watched him without moving. The glow beneath her skin rose and fell, a living tide. He felt it before he understood it. Like standing near a humming transformer, the hair on his arms prickling. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered. "You came back," her voice answered in his head, bright as a struck chord. He swallowed. "They'll see." A faint tilt of her head. "They always watch, but not always well." "Meaning?" "Your cameras," she sent, and the word carried an image. A cold eye mounted high in the corner of the room, its lens fogged where the wall's faint luminescence ran hotter. "They cannot map what is brighter than they expect. I can bend the noise." Julian's gut twisted. She was shielding him. Just enough static in the feed to blur lips, to hide the rhythm of a conversation. He didn't know how that was possible, only that it was happening, because his skin felt like it had been dusted with stars. "What do they call you?" he asked. Her gaze drifted down to the cuffs. The energy bit at her wrists in pale arcs. "A designation. A threat. A sample. My name would not be safe in their mouths. And in mine?" The glow at her throat brightened, softened. "We will see." He should have left then. He should have nodded, pretended he'd mopped thoroughly, and signed the console to close the assignment. Instead, he wiped sweat from his temple with the back of his wrist and glanced at the control pillar by the bench. For fields, restraints, dampeners, stasis purge, emergency lockdown, each nested under 8 layers of authorization he'd never touch. "How do those feel?" he said, nodding at the cuffs. Her reply arrived like a winter wind across a lake. Like drowning in silence. Julian's jaw tightened. Dampeners. They weren't just blocking her light, they were flattening whatever she was, her voice, her mind, the thing that reached without words. He'd been told the purpose of dampeners was containment. It hadn't occurred to him till now that they inflicted pain by design. Boot steps echoed in the corridor. Julian snapped back into motion, dragging the mop head along a perfectly clean seam. The door hissed open. A man in a slate lab coat stepped in, ringed by 2 guards. He was old, graceful in the way of men who lived indoors. Careful hair, careful hands. His eyes, though, those were sharp enough to peel. Dr. Voss, head of Xenophysical Assets. Julian had seen him exactly twice in 6 years, and both times from the wrong end of a warning. Voss didn't look at Julian. He went straight to the girl, gaze calculating. Subject 4, synchronization trial resumes at 1900. We will escalate the amplitude in step increments of 0.5. Try not to burn out this time. Julian's fingers clenched around the mop. The girl's glow dimmed. Not in fear, no, he realized, in restraint. She was holding something back out of sheer, stubborn dignity. Voss touched the control pillar. The field at her wrists tightened a fraction. She flinched barely. He noted it on a tablet. Response consistent. Good. Only then did he notice Julian, like discovering a stain under a chair. You, he said bland. Cleaner. Julian forced his face empty. Sanitation detail, sir. Then sanitize. Voss made a small, dismissive gesture. And keep your eyes on the floor. Julian kept them on the floor until Voss left, the door sealing behind him with the smug hiss of a safe closing around a treasure. He exhaled through his nose. Synchronization? He muttered, when he felt the static in the cameras rise again. They force my light to braid with their machines, she sent. To make their weapons strong. To make their ships fast. It is theft they call science. Julian pictured the lab bays, the shipyard screens, the way officers leaned forward when the word advantage came up in briefings. He'd been proud once to work here, to stand in the shadow of human craft. The pride tasted dirty now. What happens if I lower the dampeners? He asked. He didn't recognize the voice as his. It sounded like a stranger wearing his bones. You risk your life, she answered frankly. And mine. They built kills into the walls. So there's no way. There is always a way, she sent, and he felt the flare of something like a smile along his spine. Sometimes it waits. He worked the rest of the shift with his brain running too hot. He noticed things he'd never noticed. The hairline crack in the baseboard where heat had distorted alien metal. The way the bench's anchoring bolts were human steel retrofitted to a frame that didn't quite like them. The faint odor of singed ozone when her glow brushed the cuffs. He filed it all away without knowing why, like a man packing memory for a future he hadn't admitted he wanted. At 1800 he signed out and walked the angled corridors back to the lower mess. The soup tasted of salt and recycled regret. He sat alone by the bulkhead, staring at the grooves left by 1,000 trays. A shadow fell across his table. You look like a man about to jump into a reactor, Mira said, dropping onto the bench opposite. Senior maintenance, hair buzzed, eyes that missed nothing. She'd pulled him out of a jam more times than he could count and never asked for thanks. Just tired, he lied. She stabbed her bread with a plastic fork. They moved your route. That makes you interesting. Don't be interesting. He looked up. You ever been in a room where the lights felt like they were listening? She stilled. A beat. Cage 4. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Walk with me, she said, standing. Bring your tray. They took the service stairs down 2 levels to a maintenance bay that looked like the inside of a neglected heart. Pipes, valves, the wet breath of the facility moving through its lungs. Mira keyed a cabinet. Inside were parts, tools, a coil of insulated fiber like black ivy. What do you know about loopback noise? She asked. Enough to clean it when it gums the monitors. She tossed him the fiber. Enough to make it? He blinked. Mira, I don't want to know specifics, she said, not unkind. But I know your face. And I know the way Voss smirks when he thinks he owns the world. If you're going to be stupid, be precise. Julian weighed the coil in his hands. It felt like a decision, and like the chance not to make one yet. If anyone asks, this is for vent diagnostics. If anyone asks, she said dryly, you never spoke to me. He nodded. Why help me? Because once, she said, turning away, someone helped me. And because the first time I went past cage 4, I couldn't sleep for 3 nights. He went back to his bunk and lay staring at the ceiling until the lights dimmed for shift change. At 1858, he was outside the reinforced door again. A service cart in front of him, the coil hidden under a bin of rags. The sentries were new, eyes bored, shoulders loose. He signed the console with a maintenance code Mira had taught him. The door accepted it like a yawn. Inside, the air welcomed him like a charged tide. She looked up, glow low and steady. 1900, she sent. Be careful. NC trial. Cued. The wall peeled open like a wound in the steel, spilling raw rock and darkness into the chamber. Julian had no time to question the impossibility of it. He grabbed the alien girl's hand and pulled her through the narrow opening. Her skin radiated a strange warmth that sank into his bones, like holding a sunbeam made flesh. Behind them, the guards shouted. Boots thundered. Plasma bolts sizzled against the shifting wall as it sealed itself, fusing back into seamless metal. For a fleeting moment, Julian thought maybe they had actually escaped. Then came the sirens again, echoing down the stone tunnels, and the metallic growl of automated sentries waking from their dormancy. Red emergency lights strobed across jagged stone, painting the alien skin in alternating flashes of crimson and gold. She moved with eerie grace despite the ordeal, her bare feet silent, her glowing body throwing long shadows on the cave walls. Julian's chest heaved. Where are we going? Up. Her voice filled his head, layered and harmonic. To the stars. To home. He almost laughed. The stars were impossible dreams, painted ceilings on briefing room domes. He had never seen them with his own eyes. Yet here he was, hand locked in hers, sprinting toward a hole carved in stone by a girl who shone like dawn. They ducked into a service tunnel, lit only by her glow. Behind them, the sound of pursuit multiplied. The facility was built to contain beings like her. It would not let go easily. You said they fear you, Julian whispered between gasps. What are you? I am Leora of the Lemestri. My people are not weapons. We are guardians. They took me to tear my light apart, to turn it into fuel. Her voice trembled, then steadied. But my light is not theirs to claim. Julian glanced back. Shadows flickered in the tunnel. A drone skittered along the wall, metallic legs clicking. He swung his mop like a spear, catching it mid-scuttle. Sparks spat. The alien girl's glow flared as if in answer. For the first time in his life, Julian felt like more than a cleaner. They stumbled into a maintenance shaft that spiraled upward. Leora paused, pressing her glowing hand against a bulkhead. The metal rippled, bending like molten wax. I can open the path, but only where the rock is weak, she said. I need time. Boots clanged below. The guards were close. Julian wedged himself between 2 pipes, raised the broken mop handle, and waited. He didn't have training in combat, just years of lifting crates and cleaning after soldiers. But his body remembered the weight of work, the rhythm of effort. When the first guard's helmet crested the curve of the stairs, Julian brought the mop shaft down on his visor with a crack. The man tumbled back into the others, a mess of limbs and armor. Plasma bolts fired wild, hissing into the walls, but the angle worked in Julian's favor. He swung again, and again, heart pounding in his ears. Behind him, Leora's voice sang in his skull, urgent but steady. Hold them. Just a moment more. Stone parted. Light spilled in, her light, magnified through the rock until it looked like a sunrise blooming underground. She stepped through the opening, pulling him with her. The passage sealed shut, cutting off the guard's shouts. For the first time, Julian tasted real air. Cold, thin, sharp with pine resin and dust. He staggered, blinking at a sky freckled with stars. Actual stars. Not a projection, not a ceiling of painted dots. An infinity of fire burning above him. He almost stumbled to his knees, laughing and crying at once. "It's real," he whispered. "All this time, it's real." Leora's glow pulsed warmly beside him. She looked up at the sky, her expression unreadable, then at him. "You see now." "I see," he said, still staring upward. "But they'll come. They won't let you go. They cannot hold me. But you." Her eyes softened, her glow dimming to a gentle shimmer. "If you stay, they will break you. If you come, they will hunt you. Both paths are pain." Julian wiped his face, smeared dirt across his cheek. "Then I'll choose the one where I get to keep seeing the stars." A flicker of light danced along her skin, as though laughter had a color. She extended her hand again. He took it. The mountains loomed above, jagged black teeth against the night. Somewhere behind them, claxons wailed. The chase had begun. Section 4. The Resolution and Moral. They ran through a forest of stone and shadow. The facility's sirens faded into the distance, replaced by the whisper of wind through alien trees. Leora's glow painted a path among the trunks, illuminating strange flora that pulsed in sympathy with her light. It was as if the world itself recognized her. Julian's lungs burned, his muscles screaming, but he kept going. Every time he faltered, he felt her presence steady him, like her will flowed into his veins. When the first drones broke through the tree-line, Leora stopped. She turned to face them, her silver-blue hair rising in a halo of light. "Hide," she sent. "No," Julian said aloud. He stepped forward, putting himself between her and the advancing machines. "I won't let them take you back." "You would die," she answered, sorrow in her voice. "Better that than mopping up your blood." Her glow surged, brilliant and alive. She reached out and touched his chest, and suddenly the light wasn't just hers. It was crawling across his skin, tracing his veins in luminous fire. Pain lanced through him, but it was alive, powerful. His body felt like it was waking for the first time. The drones opened fire. Beams of plasma streaked through the night, but the light pouring from his skin bent them, scattering the energy into harmless sparks that fizzed and died in the grass. Julian gasped, looking down at his glowing arms, his hands alive with starfire. What did you?" "I shared the bond." Leora's voice sang in his skull, harmonizing with the rising pitch of her own light. "You asked what would happen if you chose me. Now you know." Together, they moved like twin comets through the dark. Plasma fire chased them, but every bolt shattered against the shield of woven light between their hands. They ran until the ground opened into a clearing where the night sky spread above them in full, infinite brilliance. A shape blotted out the stars, a massive, angular vessel, hovering silently, its hull shimmering with the same inner glow as Leora's skin. A ramp unfolded, pouring a gentle radiance across the clearing. Julian staggered, nearly blinded. "That's your ship." "Yes," she sent. Her glow resonated with the vessel's light. "My people waited. They felt me. They came." The guards burst into the clearing behind them, rifles raised. Voss pushed through, shouting, "You can't take her. She belongs to us." His voice cracked, shrill now, stripped of its clinical detachment. Julian turned, chest blazing with Leora's borrowed light. For the first time in his life, he felt taller than the man who had always looked down at him. "She doesn't belong to you," he said, voice carrying like thunder across the clearing. "No one does." The guards fired. Leora lifted her hand, and the beams folded into her light, swallowed whole. She stepped forward, her glow unfurling into wings of radiance that filled the night with color. The forest lit up like dawn breaking. The guards fell back, blinded, their weapons sparking uselessly. Voss shielded his face, snarling. You'll regret this, cleaner. You'll both.